What is going on, YouTube, and how are you doing? Today I'll be going in a little bit more depth on how it is you want to maneuver your Issho deck. If you're interested in this leader, as I explained in my previous video, it's a very good leader, very interesting leader. He has a lot to offer to the game. I think he's just criminally underrated and just undervalued because Sakazuki. But being black in nature, he has all of the capabilities of Sakazuki. He's actually one of the only other leaders that can do everything, almost everything that Sakazuki can, but differently. Obviously, he doesn't have access to blue, so he can't bottom deck most cards, but it's still black, so you can still KO a bunch of cards instead. And today I'll just be going over some of the stratagems and, well, exactly how the deck works. So, I guess I'll start off with the main thing which I've added to the deck, which is going to be Kobe. Kobe is really good because it is, as I've said in the previous video, your Hound Blaze, essentially. This is the card that's going to allow you to remove more units from the board. It tackles something higher than Hound Blaze by being able to KO 3. And it also puts a formidable body on board because you give him a Don, he can swing into your opponent. And in the late game, this will be a pseudo blocker, but it also doubles as getting him to the grave, which is going to help for reusing him whenever you want to try and use Rebecca. But again, Kobe being your 100% substitute for Hound Blaze, it's just like I said, that other way of clearing units off of your opponent's board. It really helps for matches whenever your opponent's playing high cost threes or high attacking threes. You can just go ahead and get those off the board immediately. And that's what Kobe's there for. He's just going to be the guy to ensure that, you know, you can get units off the board. With leader ability, he pretty much says he can KO any 4 costs or less creature, because again, keep in mind, leader gives everybody -1, and that -1 to everybody is actually insane. It's really good because it that blanket give everybody -1 comes in handy. It actually really helps whenever you want to KO creatures or get creatures off of the board, which leads us into our next card. And this is actually supposed to be at 4. If you're watching this video, I highly recommend that you switch this to 4. It's going to be the Rob Luchi. The Rob Luchi is also what helps you control the board. Everybody knows him from Sakazuki, but in this deck, he has essentially the exact same functionality. Again, your leader ability being able to -1 to everything your opponent has really puts everything into range for his effect and makes it so that you don't have to worry about using as many cards for reducing your opponent's characters, because you have a leader that can reduce everything by 1. This this again will help. So if your opponent has a 3/2 on the board with leader ability, you can clear both of those units into just doing 1 Don. If your opponent has let's say a 4/3 on the board, you can use leader ability plus a Great Eruption, which will also help to reduce costs and keep monsters off of the board. Seeing as this deck focuses more on getting rid of cards out of your hand, as opposed to utilizing the graveyard, because the difference between Sakazuki and this is that this doesn't have an inherent ability to cycle cards. It doesn't have it just built in to get cards out of your hand, which is why you play for Kobe, because Kobe combinates good with your Rob Luchi. Kobe is what's helping you get your cards to the graveyard so that you can go ahead later on Rob Luchi their creatures. It's a really good card combination. It really helps set you up. The 4 Great Eruption are obviously to help get you into range of these 2 guys KOing your opponent's board. But again, I do highly recommend that you go to 4 of the Rob Luchi and not just the 3 that you see me with here. Other cards that are going to really help facilitate this are going to be some of your other cost reduction cards, such as Kuzan. Kuzan is a really good card because if you can keep him on board, he can just keep minusing. This is also a card your opponent's going to focus. So this card has the ability of being also a pseudo blocker, but also being a card, like I said, that your opponent will use resources on to get rid of, because they don't want that on board, because they know that your whole entire deck works on minusing cost. So if you can -4 with him, you're just getting closer and closer to obliterating your opponent. Other cards that I play that KO, again, if you play the 4 of the Kobe and the 4 of the Luchi with the 1 of the Garp. Garp being able to go even higher than Kobe and KO 4 costs. This really comes in handy whenever it is you can't reduce all the way and you can't get him all the way down to a 3, but you can get him to a 4. That's where Garp's going to come in. He's just going to handle that because you can very easily get rid of 2s. You can very easily get rid of 1s. You can very easily get rid of 3s. 4 is where you start to get into a problem. That's when you start to, when they start to get those creatures that are really large and you can't bring them down that low. That's where Garp comes in handy and just takes care of all of that. He just really just helps you to have a presence on board that threatens your opponent, because once he touches down, if your opponent can't get rid of him, you're 9 times out of 10 going to be getting rid of a monster every single turn from that point forward. Also, if you have a combination of any of these other cards I've mentioned, you're going to be able to KO their creatures like that as well. I do want to get into the actual other cards, which are the heart and soul of this deck. I previously was only playing 2 of these. I've actually increased it to 4. The reason that I've increased it to 4 is because this card also helps facilitate getting dead hands not so dead, because one of the problems with black is that you will often have a situation where you have no counter power in hand and there's actually nothing you could do. Sabo takes care of that. Sabo helps push cards to the graveyard for Luchi's effect and also helps you to defend yourself. And plus you have leader ability, so you can every turn put a Dawn on him, put a Dawn on leader, swing 7 at their life and restand him. You don't have to put a Dawn on leader to be able to do that, but you can't just put a Dawn on him to swing 7, use leader ability, restand. You've got a 7k swinger on your turn, a 6k blocker on your opponent's turn. That's 5 costs, which is going to be a little bit harder for them to remove, because if they're not playing blue or they're not playing black, 5 cost 6k is just a little difficult to remove. If they're playing law, the red purple law, then they can use mining effects to go ahead and get rid of him. But again, if they try and keep those on board, you can just KO them with any of these other creatures. But yeah, Sabo really helps you to just keep pushing forward and keep going. Along with these, you have really good draw power in here. You have 4 and 4. It's 8 cards that allow you to draw cards, on top of the fact that you have your 4 brand new that you play. Your 4 brand new also help facilitate your your Rob Luchis. The brand news are really going to help you get those cards to the graveyard so you can keep using your Rob Luchi and just keep pressing on with KOing your opponent's board. As you can see here, these are your setups. These are really the cards you really want to see to set up for the Luchi and to set up for the Kobe, so that you can go ahead and KO those cards. The actual MVP of the deck, the actual card that is more than likely 100% either getting banned or limited coming up here soon, is going to be Rebecca. Rebecca allows this deck to function. Rebecca allows this deck to be what it is. Rebecca shifted this deck from being your casual player deck to an actually meta competitive deck. And I do believe that this deck is actually currently meta competitive. It just requires a good pilot to be able to make it so. But to go back into the Rebecca facilitates so much for you, because again, Rebecca will get you back all of these previously mentioned cards. Rebecca will allow you to get any of these, aside from these events, any of these back to your hand, and aside from these, but allow you to play these from your hand, which again fills up your graveyard, which allows you to choose more targets for later Rebecca and again, the Luchi. Not only does Rebecca allow you to fetch all of these cards back from the graveyard, but it also allows you the versatility of being able to fetch the Kobe. Again, leader ability making it so that all 4s are 3s, so you'll be able to easily KO any 4s that your opponent has on the board. Or if you can reduce their level by even more with your level reducing cards, then you can again just use a Kobe, or you can even use the Rob Luchi and the Hina Rebecca Luchi combo, which you can use in this deck, which again is insanely powerful because it doesn't take away from the deck. It actually uses it just the same as Sakazuki does. Again, you give a Dawn to leader, you're minusing everything by 1. I really want to stress how insane that is, to minus everything by 1. Whenever you're able to do that, the combos that you are able to create, the open lines of play that you're able to make are insane. Also, Rebecca allowing you to get back your 4 Borsalinos. And as you can see here, you play a lot of blockers. This deck defends itself, and it defends itself well. The Borsalinos really help you defend yourself. But you also play 2 with these Bartolomos, which I've also thought about going up to 3 because it's a 2K counter and it's a blocker. And again, because Rebecca facilitates so much in this deck that you can actually go ahead and grab this back from the trash and then restand it with leader's ability. So with 5 Dawn, you can go ahead and play a Rebecca. So think about this. Think about this. You're on your 10 Dawn turn, all right? And you have... and any of this is in the graveyard. Keep in mind, if any of this is in the graveyard, you can just recur this. You can just keep doing this. So you can go into Rebecca and then use Rebecca to summon the Batamo from the graveyard, and then summon, because you still have 6 Dawn left, you can go ahead and summon the Sabo, draw 2, trash 2, and end of your turn, restand this. So you effectively, for 10 Dawn, have gotten 2 blockers or 3 blockers onto the field for 10 Dawn. This is a very good late game turn. And also with cards such as Man Cherry, this means that you could do this. I have been in games where I have done this until I've won, where I have had a Man Cherry on field. I'll use Man Cherry's ability to grab a Rebecca and to grab a Sabo and then restand the Man Cherry. Or, you know, use Rebecca to grab, and then if I have this in hand, or if this is in the graveyard, I'll choose the other play instead, or I'll just choose the Rebecca play to just go ahead, grab that, and restand my Man Cherry. That way, I can just casually just keep using these blockers, just keep going, okay, send those to the graveyard, restand my Man Cherry, you swinging to me twice, I'm just going to go next turn, give me back my Man Cherry, give me back my 2K counter. I now have 2 blocks again for every turn that comes up here and thereafter. This doesn't include the fact that you'll be drawing cards. You could possibly get outs for whatever it is that your opponent can play. Another card that I highly recommend you playing at 2 in the deck, I just need to go ahead and find my other one, is this 0 cost event, because the side of justice will be whichever side wins. This card, again, is really good. It's better than the black 0 cost event. It's better than the black 0 cost event because of its trigger, and just because of its trigger alone. Its trigger allows you to rest one of your opponent's cost 4 or less characters, which is very good. It's got the Punk Hazard esque trigger. It doesn't rest anything, but the fact that it can rest a 4 cost or lower really will help you. And also, it's a 0 cost event, which again, you can just go ahead and use this with any of the 9 counter cards that you have in your hand. Go ahead and increase your leader by 8, and also go ahead and facilitate putting cards in the graveyard for Rob Luchi. Again, you're trying to, seeing as you don't have Sakazuki's effect to just keep on cycling cards out of your hand, then you need a way to fill up your graveyard. Cards like these, cards like Kobe, cards like Garp are those cards which make that happen. You may not see a Luchi till late game, but that late game Luchi is going to pop off, especially if you haven't used any of your events to go ahead and reduce the cost of your opponent's monsters. You play the 2 Hina because obviously it's doing its job of reduce 4. That reduce 4 cost is major, and again, because of Rebecca, you just facilitate too much. Like, again, Rebecca has insane versatility in this deck. Rebecca allows you to do a lot of, you can make an adjusted line of play with Rebecca. That's how good Rebecca is. That means that, like, if I need to reduce a level, I can reduce a level. If I need to pop a creature, I can pop a creature. If I need to create more defense, I can create more defense. If I need more counter power in my hand, I can get more counter power in my hand. Rebecca just allows you just to do so much work in this deck. And again, she can do for whatever the situation calls for her to do. Like I just said, whatever you need for that situation, if it's in your trash, Rebecca can do it. Okay? And that's why Rebecca is so good. And that's why this deck is actually insane. This card just allows you to just keep going. It's what lets you keep going. That, and like I said, in combination with the Man Cherry, you essentially have almost an infinite amount of blockers, or at least enough that can keep you in game. 3 of the Shockwave. Shockwave is just good for getting out of life, for whenever you can't, like if you're playing against another black player and they play 4-cost blocker, can't think of his name. Barso. If they play a Barso and you get this out of life, you're able to get rid of that Barso. If they have blockers that they're depending on for their next turn, you're able to get rid of their blockers on their turn, and now they're in a very sticky situation because of this card. This card is very, very good. Like I said, its trigger is amazing. It comes in handy so much. I've used this to save my life 1,000,000,001 times. Its effect, again, to just KO something upon activation that is 3 or less, that is active, is really, really good. It keeps the pressure off of you. It allows you to defend yourself while keeping your opponent from gaining any momentum. It's a really good card. I can't believe that it actually fell off as hard as it did, and people in black stopped playing it. But it causes a lot of issues for your opponent. You play 3 Tashigi or 4 Tashigi. I'm actually gonna take Tashigi down and put Granny up. Saying as Granny, one, you can get Tashigi back from the graveyard, so you don't need it as much. And Granny is a 1 cost, so you can use her 1 cost and summon that to go ahead and use her effect to, again, facilitate everything that you need. This costs 3 with the same thing, but I have to rest it. Is a little much. It is a little much. That cost 3 for -2 is a lot. Especially since there is a cost 2 that minuses 3, but it's not a 2K counter, which is the only reason that I think obviously people aren't playing that as much. But I definitely will be switching out one of these for a lower cost reduction monster. Simply, like I said, just because for Granny, because again, Granny is a 1 cost -2, and you want to use as little Dawn as you can when using this leader, especially since you're essentially very potentially -2 Dawn every turn that you play, because you have to think you have to put 1 Dawn on leader to be able to use leader's ability, and then 1 Dawn to be able to restand something. So this deck, this is why I say that this deck is not easily played. It takes a lot of time with it. You have to really put your work in to be able to play this deck correctly, because it takes a very high skill gap to play. And your first few coming around, you might be like, no, this deck sucks because I can't figure it out. But it really doesn't. Ice Age really doesn't even kind of descript you, Ice Age. 10 cost Dofi. 10 cost Dofi is really good for just keeping you in a game. 10 cost Dofi has kept me in games where I should have lost, where 100% if I did not throw down this card, that was the game. My opponent wins. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. They are the victor. 10 cost Dofi is just a good card. 10k attack body. Keeps things from being set as active, and then depending on the situation, you can either go for their life or go for those things that you don't want to go back at you, which again, if you've been playing the deck correctly the entire way through, your opponent shouldn't have any kind of counter power to be able to counter anything that you do, because you've been making sure they don't have things on board. Generally speaking, you can go first or second in this deck, but honestly, you kind of do want to go second, because you want to see those brand new plays as soon as possible. You don't mind going first because you have curves for going first, such as the Kobe's, Hina. Hina you can just play as just an attacker if you just want to play it as attacker, if you don't want to get the value of that. But again, you don't want to do that because you want to try and keep it in your hand as something to discard for counter. Also, Creed's effect is really good. If you're going against yellow, this will really help you out against yellow, because once they play that 1 combo where they play the 4 cost and they play the holy, the turn after that, if you have this in hand, then you'll just easily KO those without having to do all the Dawn investment for Luchi. You can do all the Dawn investment for Luchi, but this also has double attack and it's a 7k body, so that means on the upcoming turn he's just going to be a problem. And the last card that I run in the deck is Issho the character. Issho the character with Issho the leader is a very sick combination. It is a very sick combination. The -4 cost, if your opponent isn't thinking about it, it really just hurts them. It puts a lot of stuff in range for obviously Garp, puts a lot of stuff in range for Kobe, and if you have the reduction, you can put some things in range for Rob Luchi as well. This deck is insanely good. His on-play effect of being able to -2 to whatever it is that you play is also really good. I think that also comes in handy a lot and will always be something that you can take advantage of. This deck it's pretty good. I like it. I've been playing this deck for a long time now, and it took me till the end of OPL5 to realize, holy crap, this is busted. If you can actually manage to figure out how to run this deck is a meta contender deck. I know that that's a lot to say, but I truly believe that this deck can compete with any of the top meta decks that are out there. That means Sakazuki, Aneo, Purple Luffy, Law. It can go against Whitebeard. It can contend against any of those decks if you learn how to play this deck correctly, because it does board control really well. It tempos really well. It keeps up with your opponent really well. If you learn how to defend yourself with this deck, then you can create, again, a board of damn near infinite blockers with Man Cherry and leader ability. If they don't have any way of KOing, then you're just going to always have those creatures. But this is the deck. I hope that this video really helps anybody who wants to play the deck better understand it. Again, you can play on either curve. You can play on turn one, or you can play first player, or you play second player. Both curves work really well for you. Yeah, that's it, guys. Like I say, like, comment, subscribe. Go ahead and tell me your thoughts if you want to try and build this yourself and play it. Again, it's a very fun deck. Once you learn it, it becomes meta competitive. And yeah, that's it, guys. Hope you enjoy. Thanks for watching, and bye.